things sometimes are psychological.
I said to the financial cost
as one of the many
was enormous.
It was a God experience. I just wanted to find God.
Simply feeling like you're inspired isn't always so.
Tell us about the solution.
As one
People
of
with
many
18 to 35 years of age start out at work.
Hey, I don't have the skill for this particular problem to solve this particular problem.
None of us talked about the bread seller.
Hello, my name is Aderonke Adeola, and welcome to Heart of the Matter. Now, did you know that the first wave of feminism in the 19th and 20th century Europe focused on ensuring that women had the right to vote? Meanwhile, in the indigenous cultures in Africa, women traditionally played strong roles. Also, that women in the West were not allowed to work. Meanwhile, women in indigenous cultures were some of the most successful traders, controlling the commerce of their regions. Finally, if women in parts of Africa were actually historically empowered, what then went wrong? And what is the responsibility of modern feminists in Nigeria to frame the feminist argument within historical context? Today we're talking to Aderonke Adeola, writer and producer of Awani, a documentary that chronicles the history of feminism in Nigeria. You don't want to miss this.
In traditional societies, women had a pretty prominent role. Now the question is, well, how did this change?
This idea that we are full human beings that deserve the same rights, the same protection as men, is something that patriarchy, which is what we have in our communities, just does not recognize.
You cannot deny that by placing women in leadership roles and engaging women in decision making, you then develop a nation.
Feminism was inherent in many, many aspects of traditional society. You just didn't have a label.
But I can definitely tell you the traditional religion as currently structured in the North does not, in my view, and it's a controversial view, make it easy for women to take their rightful positions in society.
Nigeria is just going to have to come to that place of understanding that by excluding women in decision making, it's not going to work. I mean, the last 40 years is a good example.
Hi, Ronke.
Hi.
Welcome to Heart of the Matter.
Thank you for having me.
No way. I mean, we're lucky friends, but let's not, let's not really.
They don't need to know about
Some people
that.
think I'm fanzing, but sorry.
We go way back.
Truth.
Yeah.
We know our truth. All right. So we're talking about Awani, and congratulations on that, on everything, first of all.
Thank you.
But we know that it actually premiered at Ake Festival, but somehow I hear that it premiered at Yale University. How did you manage that?
Well, no, so it was I guess it's a bi-coastal screening,
Okay.
right? And I applied to both Ake and Yale, and they were happening at the same time.
Okay.
So obviously your work can travel. I couldn't be in two places, and thank you, Shola Adeola. My sister represented me.
Nice.
She got on a plane and went to Connecticut. So that's how that happened logistically.
Oh, that's really nice. That's nice. Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So how does that feel, knowing that, finally it's out there, people saw it, people loved it? How does that feel?
I mean, I hate using this word, but it is very validating. I've been working on it for 2 years plus, give or take a few months, and it's great that people are responding to it, and it's been mostly positive. I mean, some people have said, you should change this, you should add this, you should remove this, but then what I really wanted was a response. Because, sometimes you watch something and then you forget,
Yes.
I'm sure there are films that you've seen in your past, whether it's a documentary or fiction, and you can't even remember because it didn't hit you emotionally or at any level. So I'm really happy that it resonates. And of course, I mean, it's a Nigerian film. It's about Nigerian, West African history, but the fact that it traveled across, the continent, to, over the Atlantic Ocean to Yale, which is an amazing education institution. No, that meant a lot to me. So it has been very emotional. And yeah, I'm so happy to continue this journey.
Okay. So you actually are into filmmaking?
Yes, full time. I've dabbled in the past. I've sort of, dabbled a little bit. The last sort of big scale production that I was a part of was Half of a Yellow Sun. I was the producer's assistant. Yeah, no, that was great. It was full scale. They flew in, people from England, from South Africa, and then of course there was a Nigerian crew. So it was a large scale production, cars being thrown over, and because it's partially set in the Biafra, Biafra War. So the action, people going around, in cutlasses. So it was very exciting for me. On set, people would make fun of me. They're like, "Ronke, you're so brand new." I'm like, wow, this is amazing, So I haven't committed to filmmaking like I have now. No. In the past, I've dabbled. I've worked on sort of smaller scale projects. But now you're ready to
give us full time.
Yes, and starve in the process. It's tough. It's tough
Welcome
financially.
To the club.
Yeah.
Welcome to the club.
you know, my colleagues are getting looser and looser. But no, it's definitely difficult. But yes, I'm a full-time filmmaker now.
Okay, awesome. And when you talk about filmmaking, you're talking about just documentaries. Is there any plan to kind of go into cinematics?
I absolutely want to, but I definitely want to improve my skill set. Okay. I recently got into the Facebook Naija Storytellers program, where they flew in the executive producers of Insecure to sort of train us on how to tell stories. Wow. No, that was amazing. It was amazing. I met amazing people, my peers or people who've been in production longer than I have, who've been writing and making films. That was great. Meeting those people. Then, of course, meeting people who have shows on HBO, who work with Issa Rae, and then the two producers, Amy and Dana, that came from LA, they're actually working on their own shows, Wow. So it was just amazing meeting that caliber of, people who work in the industry. So yes, I definitely think maybe in about 2 years, I will be doing, maybe earlier, we'll see, I will be doing fiction, but documentaries for now, and happily, proudly doing documentaries.
And we're proud of that. We're proud of
that.
So how did you come about doing Awani? Why did you choose Awani? Because I'm sure there's a million and one different subject matters that you could have picked from, but why did you decide to pick Awani?
So a few years ago, I started writing about women's issues for This Day, and I've always been interested, obviously I'm a woman, I've always been interested in identity, femininity, history, and I found that in our sort of discussion and public discourse on feminism and equality and gender inequality, it's great that women are speaking up, I mean, that we are having our own pockets of our own Me Too movement. However, I find that we're highly influenced by the West, which isn't necessarily useful to us. So inequality in Lagos is inequality in Bangladesh, in London, in America. However, for us to really unpack and understand and in the long term solve our own gender inequality, we have to look back and find out where our inequality stems from, And as I was researching, talking to people, saying, okay, talking to this person, okay, go and talk to that person, go and talk to that person, I stumbled upon, a historian, Ed Emeka Keazor, who really sort of he sort of changed the direction of Awani, talking about what our colonizers did to us. So economically, they took advantage of us economically, taking resources that they didn't pay for, but also changing our social fabric. And that's not something that we talk about at all, I mean, we have this phrase called colo mentality, but it's such a surface phrase. We don't unpack it, and in the West, we often talk about slavery, and rightly so, slavery was awful, and we're still it still continues to be, yes, we're still, especially descendants of, American chattel slavery in the West Indies, in America and Latin America, are still suffering from the legacies of that. But we don't talk about colonialism, and that's the other side of the coin. That's the other side of slavery, where you come into a peaceful, a happy, a region, and you force your way of life. You make them feel like second-hand citizens. And then what the British brought to us was their form of gender interaction. And when Nigeria was colonized, it was the tail end of the Victorian era where women couldn't vote. Nigeria has, Nigeria again, It's a very real entity, but it's kind of a construct. And the reason why I'm saying that is that we were forced together, over 200 tribes forced together, and then they forced their own way of life on us. So when they came to Nigeria, women were largely, it was patriarchal before the British came, but women could make money. Yeah. They could make a lot of money. And there are examples of traders selling all sorts of things. The Omu of Onwu Boka. Okay. I'm not pronouncing it perfectly. Pardon me. She was a millionaire by our standards. She was a trader, and when the British came, they couldn't even conceive of it. They wouldn't acknowledge the women, so they came with resources and gun, firepower. A lot of people think, colonialism. We just opened our gates and sometimes they burnt down villages. The Benin Empire, they fought back. They did not want to sell their people into slavery. Anyway, the British came and they forced their own gender interactions upon us by enriching men, ignoring women's society. So they weren't like formal, formal trade societies, but there were women that were in trade and they worked together and they wouldn't acknowledge that. And it's not something you can read in a textbook anywhere in Nigeria, and that's something that we ought to know when we're talking about gender inequality, that as early as maybe not our grandmothers, but our great-grandmothers, they were a lot more financially empowered, especially, and I want to speak in specifics, in the South, Southeast, and Southwest. The North, again, the North it's a different, their history is very different to the South of Nigeria, and it's fairly, I address this in my documentary, it's fairly devastating because the North, essentially parts of the North, were colonized twice. Oh, wow. So centuries ago, they were colonized by the Umayyad dynasty, the Arab Empire, parts of the Arab Empire. Wow. And then centuries later, the British colonized the North. Yeah, so we've been our own history, our own evolution has been interrupted, distorted, oppressed twice. So I feel like if we're now cognizant of these things, then we can start to think of how can we really solve gender inequality.
Okay, but I'm quite intrigued by the name Awani.
Yeah.
How did you come about that name for the documentary?
So for the longest time, documentary didn't have a name because I'm like, what do I call this? Okay. What do I give the name of this story? And I'm Yoruba, and it's my story, it's our story. This is us, this is ours. So that's why it has that name. It's not the Yoruba history of women, but in one of the many languages spoken in Nigeria, it means this is us, this is ours, it's our history.
So Awani.
Yes.
Us.
Yes.
That's for us.
Yes, for us. Yes, it's for us. Yeah.
I like that. I like that very much. All right, we're just going to take a quick pause here.
Good.
When we get back, we'll talk a lot more about Awani and how you got into production and the process of it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Be a part of 14-year-old Moyo Ikenchukwu's fundraising event titled Help Them Rise. It's holding at 2 p.m. on the 14th of December 2018. For more information, please call 0816 448 3424 or 0818 732 0181.
Hey guys, welcome back to Heart of the Matter. We're still talking to our guest, Aderonke Adeola, who's the writer-producer of Awani. So, okay, moving along into the subject matter of feminism, why do you think that word has become such a provocative word?
It's a very good question. Yeah. I think women are all over the world, in South Korea and India, women that don't want to be raped for getting on the bus, women all over the world, in Brazil, it's not fair. And it's provocative because anytime there's change, there are going to be some people who are at the forefront of change, who want their lives to change for the better. And there are going to be some people who have benefited of oppression that don't want women to have equal rights. Yeah. So it is this fight between, we want things to change, we deserve it, we're equal human beings. And there's some people who are like, no, it's not, it doesn't benefit us. Stay quiet.
Wow, that's kind of... What do you say to people who partition feminism? So some people believe that it's in different fragments and you know, different factions, and some people believe that it differs from culture to culture, and you alluded to that, and how you can have gender equality be the same subject matter, but it differs in that the cultures are different. So what do you say to people who petition feminism? Do you think that's it's valid? It
is very valid. And I think that's the difficulty, the challenge with feminism is that literally if you define feminism, it's equal rights for men and women. Equal, equality. However, everybody, depending where you're from, your religion, equality manifests differently for different people, right? So you look at feminism in Saudi Arabia, they're Muslim women and they may not want to take off the hijab, but then you go to, to Russia or the West where women, they want to, there's this sort of campaign on Instagram and it's very much, pushed by, it's a Western, I don't want to say agenda, but it's a Western movement called Free the Nipple, and that's their form of equality. But I think not every woman's meant to be the same, and we have to respect everybody's rights and views. And for me, feminism is allowing a woman to be what she wants, as long as she's not hurting, that she's not causing any physical, psychological, or social harm to anyone. We have to respect. Look, if you're a Muslim and you want to stay covered, I respect you. And if I'm a woman and I'm not necessarily wearing the hijab, then respect my right to do that. We don't have to be the same religion for me to support you.
This is quite interesting for me because I'm hearing a lot of very different views from what most people are just pushing out there, because there seems to be a lot of just forcefulness and aggressiveness about it. But what frustrates you most about the way that we go about feminism generally?
How long have you got? I do think you can fight it on many fronts, but what frustrates me is when we don't make our arguments, when we don't contextualize our own inequality and try and unpack it. And I'm not trying to make excuses for anyone. I'm not. I got on a Taxify 2 weeks ago. I went to drop off my film at the Ake office in Ikeja, and he was driving the wrong way. And I told him to turn around, that you're driving the wrong way. And he got angry with me. He got very aggressive. He didn't hurt me, but I got out of the car. Now I could have gone on it. Well, I'm not on Twitter, but I could have gone on Twitter to say this guy, he was aggressive, he was this, he was that, and he deserved to be told off. However, he's probably from a place where women do not talk to men, so we have to context. So how, if I went off on Twitter, he lost his job, that doesn't change his attitude towards women.
Probably makes it worse.
Yes, it makes it worse. Now, the question is, I don't have all the answers. How do we change attitudes of men and women? Because women can be sexist to other women and be advocates of patriarchy. That also happens too, and I feel like we don't discuss that enough as well. But how do we effectively change attitudes beyond calling people out? There is a space for calling people out. Some people should be ashamed of what they do. Raping women, abusing them, violence is never okay. However, how do we effectively change the attitudes? How do we abolish gender inequality in Nigeria?
And how would you suggest? What are some few things? Yeah.
I just said I don't have all the answers.
One thing that you think we could probably do.
Okay, so for example, this is very simple. History hasn't been in the Nigerian curriculum, primary school, for 9 years.
Wow.
Perhaps if boys and girls learned about the Aba women's riots, in my documentary,
it might change.
It will have more respect for women. Aren't these docile? Your grandmothers, your great-grandmothers weren't docile. When the British increased taxes, last century, when we were still under the colonial regime, it was women that fought back, not the men. So if we know our history, perhaps women will feel more empowered, and men would have more respect. It's not always perhaps that guy in the Taxify. I'm calling out Taxify. That guy in the Taxify, who perhaps it's too late for him, because some people, you're just never going to change their minds
because they're already
formed. But young boys, young girls, if we introduce history, and an honest history, because I only found out about Biafra at 19 reading half of Yellow Sun. An honest history, telling of our history about Biafra, about the Aba Women's War, about the Abeokuta Women's Strike. Then we'd be in a much better, it may not be good, but we're in a much better place.
I like that. Okay, fantastic. So let's talk about Awani.
Yeah.
Proper
Yeah.
now. So the film making process, the documentary making process,
Yeah.
what were the highs, what were the lows, what frustrated you, what made you so excited? Let's talk about the process.
So I'll start with, I think I'll go high, low, high, low, high,
Okay.
low. So meeting women, meeting academic women, talking to journalists, talking to feminist thinkers. We went to a school, talking to women and hearing their stories, hearing their perspective. That was great. Production was it was a dream. It was amazing. In fact, I mean, one of the women we interviewed, Dr. Kemi Da Silva Ibru, one of the crew members started crying because of the kind of work she deals, the issues that she deals with. So hearing these stories, I wouldn't change it for the world. The most difficult part was editing. Editing. Is it
because you had so much content that you had to
so much content. How do I honor these stories? Because it's not, again, Awani, it's not about me. It's not Ronke's life, not the fabulous life of Ronke, which is not the fabulous life. How do I honor these stories? How do I honor these women? How do I honor my ancestors who have given so much, and how do I do it? How do I tell a good story? Because there's Ronke, the feminist, and there's Ronke, the storyteller, right? Again, I didn't do everything by myself. There was a crew, amazing crew, that helped me. The editor, Bisi Atoyebi, if you're watching, but how do we honor it? And it was difficult. So there was a lot of insecurity, and it was very emotionally and psychologically and financially. It became a burden until the screenings. Even I got into Ake as early as July, but I couldn't even be happy about that because I hadn't finished editing. A friend of mine, as soon as he got into Ake, he let the world know. He's like, my film's going to be in Ake. He told everybody, but I didn't want to tell anyone because I wasn't confident. Yes, one, I wasn't done, and two, I wasn't even confident that when I was done, it would be good because it's such a complicated topic and story to tell.
You had to do it justice.
Yeah, I had to do it justice. And then even like the Ford Foundation, I was so happy when Ford Foundation gave me the grant to finish the film. But it took a minute for the money to enter my account. But once it did, it became right. I've signed a contract. It has to finish. And I just thought, oh my God, can I refund this money? No, literally, I was like, maybe I should refund this money. But you don't do things like that because I'd obviously want to work with them for the next project and whatever subsequent projects that meet their objectives.
How did you get the funding in the first place? So the first set of monies that came in before you got the grant from the Ford Foundation. How did you get that?
Friends and family.
Friends and family.
Yeah, and then a little bit of my own savings.
Okay. So guys, if you want to get your documentary going, you want to start saving and counting your coins.
Absolutely, because especially if you're new, you don't. People don't know you. They don't know what you're about. Yeah. So you kind of have to self-fund. Yeah, you have to self-fund.
Okay. Okay. And let's talk really quickly about the Ford Foundation. How did you go about getting that grant?
So it's funny, I'm in this Facebook group called African Women in Media, and thank you, Wana Udobang, who invited me to the group. Thank you. And someone put up a job description for Ford, the Ford Foundation, and I sent her, because it's a fairly small group. Okay. So I sent her a message saying, look, I don't want this job, but I want to talk to someone at Ford, and I didn't even think she'd answer, because this is someone that I've never met. She's not even Nigerian, and she actually sent an email, copied the MD of Ford Foundation West Africa. And at first he said, look, we're not funding documentaries, we're not, but I will give you a meeting. And his background, he has a background in filmmaking, and I think you could see the anguish. You could see the anguish in my face. So we had a meeting, I told him about the project, and he said that, okay, we have a little budget for this, because it's to do with, it aligns with their objectives in trying to get more women into politics. Obviously, Awani is about women in the past, women being empowered, fighting the system, oppressive systems. So it was sort of like, it was almost divine. I think it was divine, to be honest. Well, no, how to divine. It was divine intervention, yeah.
All right, just hold that thought. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back talking some more about Awani with Aderonke Adeola. All right, guys, welcome back. If you're watching, you're still here with Aderonke Adeola talking about her wonderful documentary, Awani. So what would you say to budding and aspiring filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, who are looking to break into the industry? What kind of advice, just one One little piece of advice, what would you say to them?
Master your crafts. There's so many elements to filmmaking, so whether it's editing, writing, camera, tech work.
Just know your stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Are you looking to to screen Awani anywhere else?
Oh, absolutely. Then, literally follow at Awani Film. There are going to be a lot of screenings next year. Absolutely.
Next year?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Look forward to that. And how can we watch it there?
Yes,
We have
absolutely.
access to these screens. So do some of them just have to register, or do you have to pay for them?
Yeah, most of them you're going to have to register. Most of them you won't have to pay for them.
Okay, okay. And are you looking to work on any other projects anytime soon?
It's so funny you say that because my dad came for the screening, which was just a few weeks ago. And he's like, he called me, a few days after. He's like, oh yeah, Ronke, so what's the next project? I'm like, the next project.
But that's a good sign.
No, it's amazing. That's a really encouraging thing.
Because we're like, hey, you want to see the next project?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, I have started thinking of the next project. I do.
That's nice. Yeah. That's nice. Okay, so that concludes that segment because we're about to approach something I like to do that's a bit more fun with all my guests. Okay. So I like to call it the rapid fire question segment, and I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions. No stress, no pressure.
Okay. I'm trusting you.
I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and just tell me the first thing that pops in your mind. Okay, you ready?
Okay, let's do this.
If you could talk in your sleep, what would you say?
What's for breakfast?
I love it. You're just thinking about trying to eat. I love it. Okay, what is the first thing you would do when you get up in the morning?
I drink a glass of water.
Okay, why? Why's that?
It flushes out the toxins.
Okay, I like it. Okay, what is your favorite movie quote?
Do or do not. There is no try. Star Wars. Yoda. Yeah.
I'm just gonna say I've never seen Star Wars.
You're missing out.
Your
life is incomplete.
It's like something missing about your life. But I like that quote. So say it again.
Do or do not. There is no try.
There's no try. So you either do it or you don't do it. There's no half-assing it. Okay, I love it. What is your favorite joke?
Oh gosh, that's a really hard one. What's my favorite joke?
Is it a knock-knock joke?
I can't. I'm not really into comedians, so I'm just gonna say a really lame one that comes to mind. Okay. Why did the chicken cross the road?
I don't know.
Get to the other side. You guys are not gonna have me back.
Never come back to this show. But it's good. We like it. We'll take it.
Thank you.
Okay, last question. If you could go to outer space, what would you do there?
My only fear about going to outer space is that I don't know what they eat. But if I could go to outer space, it'd be nice to almost fly. You see those astronauts in their spacesuits. So it's almost like they're flying. So I think I would just like to be in space.
To just float around.
Yeah, to float around, because obviously I don't get to do that, and swimming pool's not quite the same thing.
It's not the same effect. Okay, I love it. Thank you so much, Ronke. It's been amazing talking to you,
Thanks
and
for
I'm
having me.
so pleased and so proud of the subject matter and how you're approaching it and how you are delivering it to the rest of the world.
Thank you.
And we just hope for greater and greater stuff with this project and your future projects.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much,
Thank
Ronke.
you.
Thank you again. All right, guys, stick around. We'll be right back. All right, guys, that's all we have for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. And don't forget to follow us on all social media platforms. We are at HOTMTV on Instagram and Heart of the Matter on Facebook. Until next time, my name is Aderonke Adeola. Have a great week.